Britain is provoking Vladimir Putin by allowing Storm Shadow missiles to be fired into Russian sovereign territory for the first time. Note, by the way, that this was only possible with American permission because these missiles depend on US targeting systems. Britain is right, along with the US, to free Ukraine's hands to attack Russia on its own soil, even though it should have been done years earlier in the war, and is now probably much too little, much too late. It beggars belief, however, that on the very same day that around 12 Storm Shadows hit a Russian military headquarters in Kursk, the British Defense Secretary announced more cash-saving cuts to the UK's own armed forces, including critically important ships, helicopters, and drones. The British government claims that these capabilities are being retired to make room for new and improved systems. But where are they? And with the threat to Europe rising, the British Defense Secretary seems only to promise even more cuts to come. These will not be the last difficult decisions I will have to make to fix the defense inheritance that we were left with. What kind of message is this sending to the West's enemies and potential enemies? A lack of resolve, a lack of commitment to the UK's own defenses, and an invitation to aggression. Equally important is the message it sends to Britain's allies, particularly the United States. Since the presidential election earlier this month, European leaders have been wringing their hands over what a second Trump term might mean for their defenses. In his first term, the president-elect repeatedly badgered NATO leaders about freeloading on the back of the United States. Matthew Whitaker, his nominee as ambassador to NATO, is also likely to be highly critical of underperforming allies riding on Washington's coattails, taking advantage of American defense spending while scrimping on their own so they can spend more on welfare. Trump's position is entirely reasonable and no rational person should question it. All members of NATO are right to be alarmed, but their reactions are understandable. France's Emmanuel Macron thinks an EU army is the answer, to boost Europe's ability to act independently of the United States, an idea of course lapped up by Brussels bureaucrats desperate to further consolidate EU power. Britain's Keir Starmer seems to want in on this project, with negotiations now underway on a UK-EU defense pact that would lock the UK in not only to defense, but also to foreign policy and intelligence sharing with Brussels. Instead of building unnecessary and counterproductive new structures that would serve only to undermine and divide NATO, the best way to Trump-proof European defense is to increase actual military capabilities by spending much more on hard fighting power, rather than endless bureaucracies and shiny new headquarters. But that is precisely the opposite of what the UK's new Labour government is doing now, and promises to do more of. The Strategic Defence Review, which will be published next year, will undoubtedly include more budget cuts to help fill the black hole in the public finances. Following Joe Biden's calamitous withdrawal from Afghanistan in 2021, NATO may well be on the brink of a second strategic defeat. President Zelensky is now talking of an end to the Ukraine conflict next year through diplomatic means. That is likely to see Putin holding on to all or most of the territory he has conquered by force since 2022 and before. If so, it will mean Russia has prevailed over both Ukraine and NATO. NATO as a whole will have to reflect on what that means for the future of the alliance. The coming months will be pivotal, and alliance members should be looking to show strength to their enemies and friends alike. Instead, they are further hollowing out what are already highly inadequate defenses.